What's good? It's Woog. Tyson Fury announced his retirement from the sport of boxing. He did so in a short video. He said he's going to make it short and sweet. He's retiring. You know, I've had a blast. I loved every single minute of it. And I'm going to end with this. And this is what the last thing Tyson Fury said in the video was. Dick Turpin wore a mask, which brought a lot of speculation. What's he talking about? Well, if you read up on Richard, aka Dick Turpin, a 1700s British thief, he's basically insinuating that he got robbed. That's how I took it. He got robbed in those two fights versus Alexander Usyk. And he said as much after each of those two losses, that he thought he won the first, and then after the second one, he even likened himself to Larry Holmes. Now, I don't think that those Michael Spinks wins that ended the long, almost decade-long heavyweight reign for Larry Holmes, I think that those were very close fights. But were they outright robberies? Let me know your thoughts on that one. But Tyson Fury is insinuating that he got robbed in those two fights. He announces his retirement. And the first thing that I want to ask is, are y'all taking that retirement seriously? Like, I'm almost kind of half taking it seriously. Like, it's possible that he wants to walk away from the sport, and he actually does that. But he's announced retirements a couple times in the past. Now, everybody remembers the long hiatus, the like 3-year long hiatus after he beat Vladimir Klitschko to capture 3 heavyweight titles. He was out of the ring for 3 years, right? So there was that one instance where he left the sport and really did for multiple years. But like most recently, he announced his retirement after knocking out Dillian Whyte, and then he came back to the ring in December that same year, and he fought Derek Chisora for the 3rd time. So this isn't unlike Tyson Fury to announce his retirement. The question is, does he mean it this time? And the skeptic in me and the strategist in me is just looking at the possibility that he's doing this to gin up a higher price on Anthony Joshua versus Tyson Fury, or Tyson Fury versus Anthony Joshua. Is this a leverage play where he's walking away from the sport and he forces Turki Al-Sheikh and company to pay him more than what they were going to pay him for a fight against Anthony Joshua? But unlike his announced retirement after knocking out Dillian Whyte, you would think that his position is a little less leverage in this case, being that he's coming off of back-to-back close losses against Alexander Usyk, where before he was riding on a high when he left the sport. Now, I'm of the belief that the price is still, or the intrigue in Anthony Joshua versus Tyson Fury is still extremely high. No, it isn't what it was when they were both at or near the tops of their games. But who isn't going to watch Anthony Joshua versus Tyson Fury? Especially, I mean, if you hold that fight at Wembley Stadium, the sales are going to be bananas. Everybody's going to want to see that fight, even if they are at much lower points in their career. So I'm almost wondering, like, why would it require Tyson Fury to step away from the sport to generate interest or more money in a fight versus Anthony Joshua? And also, I mean, does it take a lot of arm twisting to get money out of Turki Al-Sheikh? It doesn't seem like it's been the case, right? He seems to be paying the fighters pretty damn well. So I don't see how this strategically would make Turki Al-Sheikh further open up the purse to pay Tyson Fury even more. I mean, I could be wrong, but I don't really see how that's an effective strategy if that's what he's aiming for. Turki Al-Sheikh seems more than willing and able to pay these fighters what they want in most cases. But also, who does Tyson Fury think robbed him in this case? Like, does he think that Turki Al-Sheikh obviously wanted Tyson Fury versus Anthony Joshua, and he even expressed it like verbally that he wanted Tyson Fury to win this. He even said it when he was on a FaceTime call with both Fury and Usyk. He expressed wanting Tyson Fury to win that fight. So who does Tyson Fury think is intentionally doing him wrong? Like, that part seems a little bit delusional. And, you know, I would hate for Tyson Fury to want to continue fighting, but then to say, nah, F that, they're going to rob me anyway, and then start, you know, adopting a victim role in this whole saga. That just doesn't seem to be accurate. Like, we watched those fights, and I don't know, like, I think that was one of the better cases of judging. Like, all 3 judges in the rematch against Usyk, like, the first one was a very close one. I had Usyk edging it either by 1 point via the knockdown or by 3 points if you gave Usyk an additional round as well as the knockdown. But in the rematch, all 3 judges had it 116-112, and everybody that I was watching the fight with, most people who I talked to who watched the fight, they all pretty much had it 8 rounds to 4 Alexander Usyk. Like, this was one of the rare cases where in a high profile fight, the judges all pretty much get it the way that the public saw it. Like, this was about as good as boxing judging gets, in my opinion. So yeah, this isn't the hill to die on, I think, if you're Tyson Fury, to start crying foul in the way that these last two fights were judged. Like, you're fighting the smaller Usyk, who beat you in the first fight, and in the rematch, you're gonna try to like outpoint him and out tit for tat him and use that as your argument for winning. Like, you're supposed to be the big hunter in this case, tracking down the midget, right? The little middleweight, the little rabbit, right? You're supposed to be tracking him down. Optically, that's not what we saw. Optically, we saw Usyk, if anything, moving forward on Fury more than we saw Fury moving forward on Usyk. Yes, there was a little bit of both, but by and large, Usyk didn't look like he was under the distress of the bigger guy beating him up. And look, I thought that Tyson Fury did well. I just thought that Usyk did more. So again, like, highway robbery, that part, if he really means it, sounds a little bit delusional, especially if he goes back and watches it. Because I could understand how you're in the fight and you think that you did enough to win it. But if you then take a step back and you actually watch the fight and just observe it in the same way that we are all observing it, maybe Tyson Fury felt while he was in the ring that he won the fight, but then watches it afterwards and says, okay, I can see how they gave that one to Usyk. But to arrive at a Dick Turpin wore a mask reference, I got robbed narrative weeks later, yeah, I don't know about that one. So yeah, am I taking this Tyson Fury retirement seriously? Kinda. I would say 66% likelihood that he walks away from the sport. And that, to me, is ballparking it high. That's a high likelihood. Like, I could just as easily understand somebody saying, no, I think it's more 33% chance that Fury stays out of the ring and doesn't return, and 2/3 of a chance that he finds his way back in the ring. And I might adjust, that 66% likelihood that he stays out of the ring. Like, the more I think about it, the more I'm thinking, can I really see Fury like not coming back and fighting at all? Like, I could understand why he wouldn't want to fight a Martin Bakole or an Ajit Kabayel or even a Zhili Zhang. But I don't know. Tyson Fury, he hasn't been the type to turn down smoke. That's one thing I'll say. And I'm not going to do the whole career retrospective here. Like, if he stays out of the ring for, well, I don't know. If he announces retirement, so it's not like if he quietly stays out of the ring for like a year and a half, that's the time to start doing the retrospective. I guess the time would be now, but I just don't feel compelled to do that whole thing right now. But what I will say is, Tyson Fury did take on some of the toughest fights. Like, he challenged Vladimir Klitschko and he ended that long Vladimir Klitschko championship reign. And he did come back out of retirement, took lower level fights, 2 of them, and then he came in and he fought Deontay Wilder, which ended up being a trilogy. But at the time, he was a slight underdog against Deontay Wilder. That was a very, very dangerous fight. And yes, we all have that hindsight 2020 vision where, like, of course Tyson Fury was going to win that. But you really have to reset your mind back to entering that first fight between the two and what the narrative was and what the experts were saying was likely to happen. Deontay Wilder was on the top of his game as the Bronze Bomber, the longtime WBC champion, when they entered that first fight, which resulted in a draw that had that dramatic 12th round knockdown that Tyson Fury got up from. But I'm always going to credit Tyson Fury for taking that fight. That was a rough one. And also credit to Deontay Wilder for accepting that challenge and going along with the rematch against Tyson Fury. Like, Deontay could have just as easily held that WBC belt after the first one was declared a draw, somewhat controversially. There was a lot of dispute and a lot of people thought that Tyson Fury won the vast majority of the rounds. But yeah, credit to Deontay Wilder for taking the first fight and the rematch, and credit Tyson Fury for testing himself that early on in his comeback against the Bronze Bomber. It resulted in a tremendous trilogy, and that second performance against Deontay Wilder, that was really the turning point. That was where it was like, okay, that answers that question on who won that rivalry, because that was a demolition of Deontay Wilder at the hands of Tyson Fury. That was maybe the scariest I've ever seen Tyson Fury look in the ring. It was a combination of come forward aggression where you are on your front foot, you're still defensively responsible, but you're looking to throw hands, and you've gained a lot more weight and you're looking to really put a hurting on the guy. That was a tremendous performance for Tyson Fury. And credit Tyson Fury, for getting in the ring with Alexander Usyk after Usyk beat Anthony Joshua twice and stopped Daniel Dubois. I mean, Usyk's just been he's he's been the plan ruiner, right? Who would have thought that Usyk would come up from cruiserweight and beat Anthony Joshua twice and beat Tyson Fury twice? But yeah, credit Tyson Fury for taking those fights against Alexander Usyk, especially the first one. Now, there was something unfortunate in Tyson Fury's earlier career. I would say around 2013. This is a couple years before he fought Vladimir Klitschko. There was supposed to be a Tyson Fury versus David Haye fight. And for those of you that don't remember, David Haye was a tremendous fighter. He, like, talent-wise and just punching above your weight wise, David Haye was as destructive as they come. Like, he was the haymaker for a reason. Like, this guy beat Nikolai Valuev. This was a cruiserweight champion who suffered an early loss in his career. Then he became a unified 3-belt cruiserweight champion. And then he goes up to heavyweight. He beats Valuev. He becomes the WBA heavyweight champion. He knocks out John Ruiz. That ended up, I believe, being John Ruiz's final fight. He knocks out John Ruiz, knocks out Audley Harrison. And this is before Audley Harrison fought Deontay Wilder. And then David Haye loses a decision against prime-ish Vladimir Klitschko in a fight where David Haye seemed to be, suffering some sort of a foot or ankle injury, making him less mobile. But David Haye dropped absolute bombs. And again, he was knocking people out at heavyweight. After that Klitschko fight, by the way, he knocked out Derek Chisora in the 5th round. David Haye did. And then he entered talks to fight Tyson Fury, and that fight was postponed twice because Haye pulled out of the fight with 2 different injuries, one to the shoulder, and I forgot what the first one was, but the fight ended up never happening. And Haye stayed out of the ring for the next 4 years. He ended up coming back, beating a couple lower level fighters, and then lost those back-to-back fights against Tony Bellew. David Haye had a bad Achilles issue at the time, and it wasn't the same David Haye. And then he retired after that. But at the time that those Fury versus David Haye talks were taking place, Haye was the one with the big name. Haye was the former WBA heavyweight champion, former unified cruiserweight champion. Tyson Fury was still trying to make a name for himself. So that was a fight that I wish went down, because that would have been a dangerous fight for Tyson Fury, but he would have made his name a lot sooner if he beat David Haye a couple years before he finally got that shot against Vladimir Klitschko. So that was one that kind of got away, and it wasn't Tyson Fury's fault that fight didn't take place. He did have a PED scandal earlier in his career as well. That should be noted. And if there was any other big critique over Tyson Fury's career, it was that he didn't fight enough of those A-, B+, basically those kind of ranked number 3 to number 8, 9 heavyweights, right? Like, you had an era where you had, Joseph Parker, which I get it. They were, really good friends, really good buddies, Tyson Fury and Parker. So I get why he didn't fight Parker. But you also had Alexander Povetkin. You had Andy Ruiz. You had Luis Ortiz. You had a lot of other really good fighters, interesting fighters that would have made interesting matchups, and just kind of those boxes that you want to check to prove that you're the top dog in the division. Now, there was a time that Fury was a top dog, but that largely came from being the guy who beat Vladimir Klitschko and the guy who stopped Deontay Wilder multiple times. That got him there, but he didn't, to me, check enough of those B+, A-, ranked number 3 to number 8, number 9 guys in the division. He just didn't. Now, he did pick up that Dillian White knockout a little bit later on. So that was arguably one box that he checked, even if you want to say Dillian White was well post-prime by that time. But yeah, to me, Tyson Fury didn't win enough of those fights. I mean, he's a Hall of Famer regardless, but to really plant your flag in the soil and claim that you are one of the greatest heavyweights to ever do it, to me, you had to win more of those fights. And he still, to this date, hasn't had that big showdown against Anthony Joshua. That would obviously be a huge boost to the legacy. But I think that a big reason why Fury wasn't able to check those boxes is because he had such a long layoff after beating Vladimir Klitschko. Like, you're talking about 3 years in your prime that you're losing. Like, think about it. Like Muhammad Ali, Cassius Clay / Muhammad Ali lost 3 years of his physical prime to the ban. Like, when he came back from the ban, he wasn't the same fleet of foot Muhammad Ali that he was in the late 60s. It wasn't the same guy. He lost 3 years of his physical prime, and I think that it was just a lot of lost opportunity for Tyson Fury. Yes, he made it back, obviously, in terms of the money that he made in having those big fights later on in his career, but in terms of checking off a lot of those boxes and beating the other very important opponents in the division, that becomes a lot harder to do when you lose 3 years of your prime. But yeah, I don't know whether to take Tyson. I don't know how seriously to take Tyson Fury's most recent retirement. I hope that he does come back and have that showdown against Anthony Joshua. But aside from that, what else really is there for him? It's not like, I don't expect or necessarily want to see him fight Daniel Dubois or Philip Ergovich, right? But yeah, let me know your thoughts on Tyson Fury's announced retirement in the comments. Are you buying it? Do you think that it's really taking place, or do you expect to see him back in the ring within the next year to year and a half? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Like the video, subscribe to the channel if you are into the fight talk. I'm Woog. Thanks for tuning in.